We're back.
Welcome to episode 7 of our Form Check Friday. And I cannot believe it has been 7 weeks of doing Form Check Friday every single week.
Yeah.
Does not feel that long, but I guess time flies when you're having fun looking at lifts. But I'm here, obviously, Seth, with...
I'm Mianna. I'm his wife.
You guys probably have figured that out by now, hopefully. But
Why people don't believe me?
they probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Anyways, it is Friday. Every Friday inside Team Activated, I post a thread asking for lifters to submit videos so they can be cyberbullied by us on the YouTube channel. So we're going to hop in the team to do just that. And if you guys don't know what the team is, it is an online community that I have created for building the best powerlifting coaching platform that I possibly can. And in addition to getting feedback like this on every single lift that you want feedback on directly from me, you're going to get coaching, you're going to get technique cues, you're going to get access to exclusive programming, which has some very exciting news coming very, very, very soon. So be on the wait for that. But bottom line is that the team is freaking sick. And because of that, we're actually ramping prices up on April 1st to ensure that I can keep giving everyone as individualized attention as possible. So if you want to hop in before the April 1st point, because you'll save yourself some coin. And if you sign up annual, you will save yourself even more. So let's get into this.
Let's go.
You want to start from the top or the bottom?
I feel like the last 2 times we've done the top. So
Okay, we'll go to the bottom?
Bottom, even though some people were a little late.
Yeah, because I normally say like we're capping around 10 just so the YouTube video doesn't become 3 hours long. But we got an 11 and a 12.
Oof.
Now, Brandon is fairly new here, so I'm not going to be too upset about that. But I'm going to bug Matt about his counting skills.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at Brandon's max effort single after months off from being out with surgery.
Oh, do we know what surgery?
I do not know what kind of surgery this was. So Brandon, please fill us in on the surgery that you had. I want to assume that it's nothing that should be getting in the way of lifting if we are still lifting.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was like something had to be reattached.
No. It's doing the same thing that it did the last time I was on the laptop with Kai. So we're going to have to open YouTube.
Open YouTube? Oh, okay.
Watch on YouTube.
Oh, a front squat.
Fronty.
Whoa. Honestly, I'm already impressed with his range of motion.
Yeah, his front rack is sick.
There's
That's a really good front rack. But what do you see there?
Can you... Oh, I wasn't expecting that zoom in. I'm looking at his feet right now. That ankle range of motion is... Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm impressed with the ankles. Like, that's really, really, really good.
Whoa. But what do you think here? There's a lot going on through his hips and torso. What do you think?
So I think a little bit, if you go back to the top, if we look at his relative torso orientation, like where the rib cage is in relation to the pelvis at the top of his front squat, he's pretty like lumbar arched right here. You'll see he transitions to a little bit of lumbar roundiness in the bottom. And I think that I don't really want to, again, like I probably do want to get rid of the active rounding, but I don't think that where he is in the bottom is that bad of a position. So what I'd probably try to do is up here, get more anterior ab tension, pull that rib cage down towards the pelvis on the front side while keeping those shoulders high and that front rack pretty. That should give him a better brace, a better stack, which should then transition to more control. And I bet if we start with closer to the position he ends up in the bottom, we probably won't have to transition all the way to the position that he did end up in. And in terms of like programming ideas to build that up, big thing that I always hammer on for everybody is the importance of having strong abs, especially as a powerlifter, being able to create that tension pulling in. So any sort of loaded setup variation that he wants to run, if we are doing a ribs towards pelvis intent, should help with getting that stronger to maintain that position better. And if he is having a hard time finding that with a setup variation, what I'd want to run instead is a like standing cable abs. I post these all the time in my vlogs. So if you guys haven't seen it, I mean, go watch the vlogs or send me a DM on Instagram. I'll just send you the video of where it is if you guys are curious. But like really, really, really happy with this in terms of a front squat. Because again, the ankle range is sick. Where the knees are going is sick. His drive out of the bottom is sick. I think it's just to be clean up the brace, get more into your tension, and then kind of push forward with the arms harder against that tension. He should be able to hold her together a whole lot better.
One thing that I'm thinking too is that after any significant amount of time off, I feel like the brace is one of the last things to come back typically.
Yeah. And like, even with my pec surgery where I still was squatting safety bar like super regularly and then transitioned to high bar, it was like, as soon as I had my arms out, I had to like incorporate more lat in the brace. It's like, I didn't know what the frick I was doing. And it was really, really, really hard to get back. But what did get it back for me was, again, just being extra intentional with my ab work to regain the skill of using my abs to brace well. And that helped clean up my squat so I could squat well still after the pec surgery had hit an all-time PR.
Yeah.
But we are going to move on to Matthew.
Yeah, who can't count past his fingers, so
Poor guy.
okay.
Hey, maybe he has an extra finger. You don't know that, or an extra toe.
I don't want to know if he has an extra finger.
Forgot to check out YouTube again. I didn't read the context either, so I'll go.
Oh yeah,
Read
what's
the
going on?
So barely making it to your top set of stiff legs and last set of fronties. So I'm assuming this is his frontie as well. And Matt is someone that is negative leveraged for front squats. He's built like a freaking deadlifter. He's so long. And like I was joking that like his front squat is like every time someone comments in my videos that like front squats are bad if you're built for deadlifts because you'll never be able to do it. And it's like, well, this guy's doing it. He's like 6'3" and long as can be. And it looks really, really, really clean.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to say about that in regards to like deadlift lever built people is that Matt's flexibility, he has insane range again, and he's able to hold a really good position. And what I want to point out here too, versus the last one, is you can see his ab tension as he's getting set up. Like you can see that he's actively pulling there. And like he is a little bit arched, but it's not changing. He's keeping that tension. He's able to drive up super well because of that tension. But the point I wanted to make about his levers is that if you are a tall guy with long legs and you're trying to do a front squat, the secret sauce is just like run enough heel elevation that you can get to the bottom without needing to dump through the torso at all. And it's going to work way better for you. So this is, again, I wanted him to post this because it's a really good frontie, and I just wanted to talk about a really good frontie. Now, we got his, got to click on YouTube again, darn it. Oh no, this is the same video twice.
Oh, is it?
Don't get to see the stiff legs.
Oh,
Unless it's in here. Is it
no.
here at the end? It's just hiding?
Not only can he not count on past his hands.
You know what? I've done that plenty of times, like sending clients videos. Like I know like I've said, you know, like I've sent the wrong video to clients. Like I have a link copied and like I go and paste the link and I'm like, oh darn it, that was the wrong video to the wrong client.
Yeah.
But at least like it's just like a YouTube demo of a different thing that I want to be demoed. So it's nothing bad, thankfully, but it happened. So I could get her.
Oh, we got a new team member just now.
Saw one hop in. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Zach.
Had Pascal here now, and Pascal is someone I would kind of consider a homie at this point. Like I've worked with him on his pec rehab. We've talked a ton, and like he is so good at just doing his job and being good. But the kind of problem he's run into the last couple of weeks is he's running his own programming not on here. So I might kind of yell at him to rein that in a little bit because he's kind of running into some issues where he's catching some dings. And if we're thinking about like getting hurt as a powerlifter, like the biggest thing that we need to think about is that if we are trying to do a task and the task level is up here, but a preparedness level is up here, doing that task level up here is going to subject us to injury risk. So it's just going to be a matter of like, he's been cranking hard, smacking PRs. He tweaked his adductor. He recently tweaked his lat. So I just want to slow down on how hard he's pushing for a little bit to let him get through it. But he is running some deadlifts that he did last week. Today, his lat pain was in the way of the deadlift. So we talked about what to do about the lat in the team already. So I'm not going to get too far into that. But let's look at his deadlift. He's thinking more chin pack, more stronger brace, more stronger hams, more stronger erectors. What do we think?
Okay.
Let's
open it up.
Find out. Another really, really tall guy. What do you think, Indiana?
My first thought, I don't think his head pack is that bad.
No, I don't think so either. And like the characteristic thing that I think about with hams is if the bar is kind of about mid-range, the knees want to shoot under.
Yeah.
Go towards the end of the set to see if it does get grosser.
Like maybe there, like,
but
maybe
I
it's
think
not
that's
head pack there, but like at the end of it, a longer set, I'm not too worried about.
But again, like looking at where the head flick is going, like where it's happening is good until it slows down.
Yeah.
And the head flick up there is going to be characteristic, especially with where that sticking point starts to creep in. That's going to be characteristic of glutes. So it kind of, again, like the hamstrings kind of does tend to be like a trying to shove knees under the bar a little bit. But if it's a hamstring, it tends to happen lower in the range versus glutes happening closer towards lockout. That's just due to where the hamstring levers click in for a deadlift compared to, not a deadlift, but where the hamstring levers click in compared to the glutes. So I would be thinking glutes here for sure. And I think, again, like what we can, do really well to kill two birds with one stone to kind of take care of the little bit of back yielding that progresses through the set as well is running some slightly rounded stiff legs against band or chain, just so that we can really, really, really kind of expose the glutes well at that top end, as well as touch the erectors good because we're running a stiffy. So I think that once we get the lats sorted, that's something that we want to crank on. And in the short term as well, if he can't do a combination deadlift due to that lat strain, running a stiff leg might be a little bit easier on that, just because it's going to be a little bit easier leverage-wise on the lat, as well as it's going to be a little bit easier because it will be a whole lot lighter than his comp deadlift. Now, we got Sam coming up here, and Sam's someone that's been on the team that I'm going to yell at a little bit because he's been in here a while and he doesn't post a ton. And I don't like that, because if someone's in here and they're not really posting, I have a hard time at knowing what is going on. So if I'm only seeing snapshots, it's hard to give really good advice. But if you're someone that's posting all the time, it's really easy to give great advice because I can get familiar with you and know what I'm looking for. But his deadlift has, I got her.
Yeah.
His deadlift has been rough for a long time now. Aside from not cranking neck up, which you notice in both videos, what else do we feel he could work on? First video is 495, where he felt pretty fatigued. Second video is 2 weeks later off of a 2-inch block. Happy to hear feedback so we can get to the plateau. Best all-time deadlift is 590. So curious to see what is going on here. And again, I wish I had more to go off of.
See, we were talking about head pack on the last video.
That's
what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead.
And again, like that head pack, it is going to be a little bit reflective of anterior tension. And it's also going to be reflective of trying to get erectors to take over for glutes. So I think, or take over for hip extension. It is this low in the range. It's more so they're taking over for adductor magnus push. But I think like seeing this, seeing how he's really on the outside of the foot and seeing where the head pack is happening, kind of being like, okay, we're trying to take over for adductor magnus. He's really on the outside of the foot. So adductor magnus isn't working super, super, super well. So I think this will be twofold. Is number one, I'd want to check up on hip range to see that if he has the IR capacity necessary to get that inside of the foot pushed down so he can drive through adductors harder. If he doesn't, we will definitely want to clean that up. I'm going to send him some stuff from the movement library. I have stuff for IR in there that should be very helpful to get that range going. But what I want to think training wise is two things that I'd like would be a strict step up where the whole goal is to drive off the inside of the foot. And I got a cough or burp or something. I don't know what that was, but
and let the knee come in a little bit.
Let the knee come in a little bit. Try to push the inside of the foot. Let the knee come in a little bit to really get the adductors going. And the other thing that should help with getting a better initial push off the floor is going to be running a narrow box squat. And again, I don't want the narrow box squat to be like a true depth box squat. We're doing the box squat for a deadlift. So I want the box height set up so he can make his levers look in a similar position to where he is on his deadlift. And I think that should help him with finding more adductor drive. And you can see on the 2-inch block, he still is to the outside of the foot. But it looks like he's a little bit less to the outside of the foot. So that, again, makes me want to think back to the hamstring flexibility thing. Not the hamstring flexibility, the hip flexibility. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time talking today, but it could be worse. I think it's like the diet calories is just making like the mouse to brain connection a little bit slower. But again, I think it is just like everything on top of down here looks really well situated, like other than the head, but like torso brace, rock solid. I think it is just learning to get a little bit more adductor magnus to kind of really help with creating that hard hip extension. And like he's in the quads well, definitely not kicking out of the quads. So I'm not worried about that. I think it's just get adductor magnus freaking stronger in that hip extension. And it is going to be what we need to happen.
And then one thing I want to think about too with the head pack is just like leading with the back of the skull, or like kind of like where the skull meets the neck, and just kind of like leading by pushing back to initiate.
And going back to like stiff legs and why I think stiff legs are freaking sick for deadlifts is that if you can do a stiff leg where your whole goal is to just drive that up first, like that's going to teach you how to head pack and how to keep that in. But in this case, again, we might need to get the adductor magnus to come up a little bit to be able to maintain that.
And it's really hard for me to figure out where your head meets your neck.
Ouch. Man, oh man. Anyways, we got Weston up here. I've already saw this set, but he's looking for a little bit more in-depth help that might be useful for others. So he's tossing her up, and it's his favorite and most frustrating lift. So let's take a look at this pull. Leanne hasn't seen it yet. So
no, I haven't.
And I know that with the coach that he's working with, he has had a really big RDL emphasis as of late.
There's a big kickback happening.
Yeah. And the other week, he ended up doing RDLs into his deadlifts, and his deadlifts looked like hella RDL-y. I think that what's going on here is, again, it's a little bit of just like, he's really solid in that RDL pattern right now, and he's just kind of like learning to kind of groove it into where an RDL would be. And you got to see, like, I don't think it is as much of a, like, needing to push through the quads that much harder. I think it is just a little bit of sequencing where we might want to, again, I normally say this the other way, where a lot of times guys are trying to get a little bit too upright to the mid-range. I might want to try to get a little bit more upright sooner, just so that we can not be so leaned forward and have better leverage to the mid.
Yeah, this is a very RDL-y deadlift. And
you'll also want to see too, what I talked about with him is his toe pressure is decent at the bottom, but then he shifts towards heels hard to the mid-range. So what I kind of want to do to kind of help with that a little bit is to get that upright torso a little bit sooner, is I'd want to be thinking about, like, as he's hitting that mid-range, keep the toe pressure down to help push him backwards. And I think that should help clean this guy up. I was kind of talking about, like, potentially having a conversation with his coach about running something that will kind of emphasize the kind of the quad push sequencing a little bit more than what he's running now. And kind of ideas for that might be a deficit, might be a Boris pull, but those could be two good options to run as a secondary. So he kind of gets away from the little bit of RDL patterning stuff that he's got going on. And we got Chris here. And if you guys remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we ran Chris's 1.5s. It was the first video he'd ever posted in the team because he was brand new at the time. And I've already seen this. So again, I'm going to let me on the lead.
Oh.
Do you remember what his last squats looked like?
I'm trying to remember. I'm bad with names. Oh, I think I remember him.
His squat wasn't bad enough to really stick out in your mind.
No.
That's probably a good sign.
I think I remember I mentioned that I didn't like his head position and like his breathing pattern.
But
did he fix it? His head position looks...
Yeah.
He takes it well. Good. Okay.
Yeah. So like this is such a big improvement.
So now, good.
What I think I want to kind of continue to dial in right now is it looks like his head pack sequencing is a little bit off still. So 2 weeks ago, we saw it. He had no head pack. His head was flailing everywhere. Everything went to shit. Last week, what we talked about in the team, not on here because he didn't submit to here last week, but what we talked about last week was trying to have a little bit more of anterior tension to then pack again. So he's enhancing the brace via the pack. And the problem last week was he was just packing without anterior tension. He was flaring rib cage and kind of getting a little bit away of the brace. This looks so much freaking better than it was before because like he's packing against tension. Now, my only kind of criticism to what he's doing now is watch the head.
How he finishes? That's exactly
what he lets go of it. Yeah, he lets go of it at the top between reps. And he's also doesn't have it yet through his walkout. So I want to be kind of thinking about when he's head forward into the bar, lock abs down, and then pack into that ab down tension once or before he even unwraps the bar. And that should make it a whole lot nicer and tighter and better situated. But this is a freaking, like, this is such a good squat. And when Chris started here, he had like super jacked up hips, so the hips are already feeling way better. So he can slam into the hole hard. So I'm generally very excited.
If he's someone who likes cues to think about while he's lifting, what I use for Seth when he does this, and Darrell is almost always guilty of this, of like finishing the rep by pulling the head forward, is like find the head, pack down, and then as you're coming up, you want to think keep the head. That's what I always yell at you guys. Keep the head on the way up.
Yeah, and the first person that kind of pointed this out to me, I think it was 2019, Brian Hill's garage in North Carolina. We went up there to run away from a hurricane.
Yeah.
And Brian, still is one of the better multiply squatters of all time. And I had no idea what to do with my freaking head. It was just kind of loosey-goosey, trying to like look at the sky because that's what every old article that I read on multiply suggested. And Brian's the one that yelled at me that was just like, keep your head back and do not let go of it between sets. And it was like all of a sudden, like my multiply squat blew up and I stopped having stability issues at the top end. So it's a really valuable tool. Like multiply is going to be exposed more than raw, but I still want to have it at raw, especially for doing a rep set, because it'll let us carry a better brace through the entire duration of the set. So
it's also, I feel like the powerlifting equivalent to like stopping a sprint 10 meters to the finish line.
Yes. Yeah. Because if you're already like through the squat rep, it's like, just don't let go of that tension. Because especially if you're doing a set of multiple reps, like if you let go of the tension halfway through the rep, your next rep is going to be shittier. So keep her locked in, and like it will be harder. It will be more uncomfortable. It will require more discipline, but it's going to be more better for you, because if you can make your second and third and fourth and fifth rep of a set better, that's going to have better carryover to your single that you're going to have on the platform. Now, Austin is tossing some videos in, a few videos. So we've got a lot of stuff going on here. So he's got his speed bench, and that's the thing. He's the biggest thing he's looking for, because he's experimenting with a bit of a toe pick. He's normally flat-footed, and he put his squats in to make sure he's doing everything right and not wrong. Then he incorporates a legs into videos because his legs shake very bad. So let's take a look at what we got going on here. And again, I've already seen this stuff, so I know what's going on a little bit, but
that's cheating.
And kind of like, I was hoping it was going to be the bench first.
Oh, yeah.
But we got the squats. Like, he wasn't super stoked with how the squat moved this week, because this was going to be a little bit of a deload week. I told him to kind of take approximately what he's planning on running as a last warm-up on meet day. And he's kind of like, damn it, this felt like it was really heavy. But the thing is that, like, if a guy is cooking to the point where I am advising that we do take a little bit of a deload, we're taking that little bit of a deload because things are freaking cooked. And if things are freaking cooked, we can't expect the bar to feel light. So I think, like, visually looking at this moved perfect for what I was expecting, knowing how he was feeling. So it's kind of just a matter of, like, if you are a little bit cooked, like, just be okay with something feeling heavier than it should, because you are cooked. And if you don't, slam your head against the wall and try to force it on a session like this, even though it did feel heavier than he wanted, he's still going to be able to catch the recovery back to move on. And as far as, like, everything squat-wise, pretty damn stoked with the brace. I think the elbows, happy with where he ends up. I just wish they would end up there a little bit sooner. And then again, he keeps that tension there at the top of the rep, so he's not letting go. But with the bench, so he's someone that has typically ran flat-footed, and he's switching to toe pick. He's someone that I kind of have to yell at a little bit, because he's always kind of grasping at straws and changing shit that doesn't necessarily need to be changed. And I think this might be one of the times where, okay, I actually like the ribcage position and the push with the toe pick better, because you can see when he's flat-footed, it is falling a little bit more. But I'm going to say, like, okay, this looks better today. Stick with it, because I think he's 4 weeks out from his meet at this point. Yeah. So, like, no more changing shit, no more screwing around. Stick with this. Drive looks good. Rib cage is staying taller. So we're definitely going to be able to roll with this. And again, like, if we're comparing the rib cage, just watch how it's high, flattening out, losing it. So again, I think that the toe pick is going to be much, much, much better for that. And I think too, like, with that rib cage flattened out a little bit, it is kind of like he is sliding up the bench. So it might even be like the toe pick is less forceful in leg drive, but that might actually be working in his favor. Yeah. And I think the other thing too to talk about with leg drive is he's kind of doing the nothing and then shove. Yeah. What I want to see is tension from the very, very, very start, and then just keep the tension as high as possible. And then everything you want to happen leg drive wise is just going to happen, because as you lower the bar, you're going to kind of like, everything's going to compress and load into the legs, and it's going to be just act like a spring. We shouldn't be like actively contracting, actively forcing, because that's going to be putting someone at risk of having their butt shoot off the bench. Now, with these guys being shaky, what do you think?
You're the doctor.
So usually this kind of shake is, because, like, if we're thinking about what has to happen on a leg extension is, obviously legs need to extend, like knee needs to extend, quads need to flex, but up chain, usually what this indicates is a little bit of hip flexor deficiency, and the hip flexor is kind of like fighting for its life to help stabilize the femur against that knee extension. So usually when this is happening, it's going to be a matter of just bringing up hip flexors, doing some dedicated hip flexor work, and that should clean up. And this is also, it does happen a little bit on his deadlifts as well. And again, I think it is just going to be like, we need to just keep on cranking the hip flexor work, keep on cranking the ab work to get the anchoring up there to be better, so we have more control, tightness, locked in this, like through the brace in the torso, which should lead to better force production down the chain. Now we got Pia here with a close grip floor press. I saw the three.
Are you going to say close grip?
Close grip floor press. I wanted to say, I saw the three and I thought it was going to be a three board, but she's got abandoned deadlifts. Floor presses felt super easy, even with the pause and staying tight. She's wondering if she's stronger close grip. Bench sometimes, because she can do at least 200, 215. for 2 pause for them, depending on how fresh she is. And she is a longer arm lifter, very built for deadlifts, which you will see on the banded deadlift. But what is going to be pretty typical of longer arm benchers, and I know that she has strong triceps from the evidence of the tricep accessory work she's posted in here. If we're thinking about leverage wise on a close grip bench for a long arm bencher, if we are way out wide and the arms are super freaking long, that's going to be a ton of stress on the humerus because the hand is so far out here. But if we bring the hand in a little bit, that is going to shorten the lever arm that the humerus is going to act on with the bar, so it can take a little bit of work away from the pec, which then if a lifter has strong enough triceps to then overcome the increased leverage on the triceps, it can work a lot better. And that's why you see a lot of really, really, really strong longer arm benchers benching with a relatively close grip. Like even like Julius Maddox is not someone that you'd think of someone as like a long arm bencher because he's like 500 pounds and, you know, has a giant torso, but his arms are relatively long. And that is just like taking advantage of his giant triceps. But I think like, as far as floor press quality, what I wanted her doing these for was to help out with the bottom end control on her comp bench. And in terms of that, tricep settle, pulling in, drive it up. The only thing that I want to try to emphasize a little bit more here is when she's in the bottom and pausing, sort of get a clean look. So the chest is staying about level. If we're doing a floor press for bottom end on bench intent, what I really, really, really want to see is trying to lift the chest towards the bar. And like you're trying to pull the tricep from the floor, see the chest scoot up just a little bit. And that'll be the kind of upper back tension that we want to display when we're benching. I thought the video was playing, but I guess it wasn't. Do you have anything to
add? The only thing that I was going to add, I mean, this looks strong and promising, is that I prefer that floor presses are done with a bit of a squishy mat.
I mean, it is a little bit of a squishy mat. It's enough. And
you think it's enough?
The reason for that, I mean, squishier mat might feel better, but the reason for that is that in order for the pecs to work, we need some degree of scapular freedom, because for the pecs to contract, we need a little bit of protraction. For the pecs to lengthen, we need a little bit of retraction. And if we are benching on a hard floor and not allowing that, it can make the pecs feel a little bit clunky, and it can make it a little bit hard in shoulder rotation as well.
Yeah, it just looks like a really thin mat. So if it feels hard on your scaps, then I would go to like a squishier pad is the only thing that I'd say.
And this banded deadlift, so what's really cool about this is like she's a mid-force puller, so she's super, super, super strong. But when she does pull really heavy, it does tend to turn into like a very spiny, stiff leg. And what's cool about this, and what I want her to kind of start emphasizing with this, is I want her to really, really, really try to emphasize that leg push in the beginning and try to do her best of keeping the quads in it as long as possible before we do turn it into the stiff leg. And I say like, this is a really, really, really good job of that. But what's neat as well is the hands-on deadlifts are always disgustingly hard.
Yeah.
Like it's like easily the most shitty deadlift variation ever. And you think like, oh, if I can pull, 600 pounds straight weight, like 500 pounds plus a mini band should be easy. But no, you will get your ass kicked because bands suck.
Bands do suck.
What's cool is it's really kind of exposing that top end stick point where she is having to get the spine through. So I think this is a really good variation. This was actually, Gabby is working with Pia one-on-one right now. Gabby's another coach that's in the team. And this was Gabby's call. And I want to be like, hell yeah, Gabby, because like this is going to do so good for Pia here. But
yeah,
I'm excited. Like she's going to have a disgusting deadlift once we get those quads kicked up. And
strong girl.
She's dealing with some knee arthritis stuff that's been giving her a hard time for a while. But like she's doing the right things for it. The quads are coming back to life. Like she's getting more legs in the deadlift.
Yeah.
I'm really stoked.
Like still lacking quads in the deadlift, but it's better than it was 2-3 weeks ago when she last put in the form check.
100%.
Yeah.
Now we got Calvin here.
Oh, are those some heels I see?
Yeah, he's got the heel shoes on. I was so excited because I've already seen these videos, but I was so excited when he posted these in the main threads, because if you guys remember Calvin's really nasty squats, the first week he posted, and then less nasty last week. Well, these are
even better.
These are way less nasty. And I got I'm going to remember at some point. But look at the upper back. He still
we're
is a
getting
little
better.
bit roundy above the bar, and he's losing that head patch. So I really want to, again, keep cranking the thoracic extension work. We have him running pullovers with an extension 10 multiple times per week to get that going. But yeah, if you didn't hear me on a whisper,
Better.
why'd you whisper again?
I didn't want to speak over. It's so much better.
But
so like, it's still not perfect to the back, but like
so much better.
It's like 10% better every week, and it's just almost there. We're almost there. What do you think is like left to kind of get that back to look a little bit better and have him into the hips a little bit more in that squat?
I think that, again, I might want to, what I talked about last week when he was on the little sketchy narrow wedge, is that I think I might want to make more room for him by nudging stance out. And I think that, again, a little bit wider. We're going to kind of see it when it does get heavier on his next squat, because it's more of a closer to max effort protocol on this day. Is, as he noted in the comment, which is, didn't need to press that button. There's a number pad on the inside of this mouse that I hate, because I always like move the mouse and accidentally press it. But we do have that.
Oh. What were you going to say?
I think I have the days confused in my head. But
I think this looks
we do
better.
have a little bit of the butt weight going on here, but it looks like he is getting to the bottom better. That might be kind of because he's letting it wink and creating space.
Yeah.
But I think that this kind of doubles down on the suggestion that I might want to nudge her out an inch or two just to see if we can create more space for him in the bottom so that we aren't quite as needing to get tucked under. And if he keeps working on that thoracic extension range and strength, he should be able to get this better situated, a little bit wider to make room for down there. And it's going to be a really pretty squat. And I'm so stoked with the progress. And like, I recommend going back and like looking at the 5-week video to see his first squat, because it was not pretty. And like, it's still not pretty, but we're getting very close to being able to be like, yeah, that was pretty.
And one thing I would suggest too for Calvin is some sort of T-spine stability, or not stability, but strengthening / flexibility every day, like twice a day.
Yes. But again, we're doing that with the pullovers.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, do it every day. I don't think that like doing it as an accessory is enough. You know what I mean?
Yep. And we got Melissa here, and she is someone on an AI programming. And we talked about AI programming a little bit in office hours. I'm in the process of kind of getting an AI conjugate rolling. And kind of one of the things that was brought up from Chris is his kind of concern with the AI program when he ran it is that it kind of just gave him lifts that he wanted to do and not the lifts that he needed to do. And he realized that if he needed to get better, he needed to do the lifts that he needed to do, not just the lifts that felt good that he was good at. And this is kind of one of those cases where AI wanted her to just run high bar this week, but she pulled the trigger on saying, screw it, I'm doing front squats because my high bar, I can kind of cheat. Front squats, they are much less cheatable than high bars. And I think it's going to be like a very, very, very good move that she ran this.
I wish I could see her.
I'm actually stoked at the number of front squats we have, because there's lots of stuff to talk about. Now, the last 2 front squats, they were really, really, really solid. This is still better than her front squats last week, so I'm not too upset by them. But I think that what is going on a little bit is she's kind of talked about how when she squeezes her glutes hard, it tends to shut off her brace. When she braces hard, it tends to shut off her glutes. So when that happens, that usually tells us that we need to work on some hip extension length so we can have those glutes squeezed, get tension in the glutes, and then not lose the pelvis away from her brace positioning. And you kind of see too, again, how she's having that little bit of like finishing with lumbar extension rather than finishing with glutes coming through. So I think this is going to be like, to really clean that up, I really want to see just a lot more hip extension work just to get that length in there so we can start making more space so we can find glutes at the top to incorporate into the brace. But as far as the fronties look, like, I'm pretty stoked with that. And what we have her doing for that hip extension work is I have her getting into a long split squat with a band. And what we're doing with the band is we're going to get in the bottom of that long split squat, squeeze glute as hard as she can, find a hip flexor stretch, and then do band dislocations in that position. And again, if we're looking at the front view, you can kind of see like the rib translation. And I think that the big thing here is, again, it looks like it's coming more from down here than a lack of tension. So I think, again, just improving that flexibility so she can crank through harder is going to be a little bit better. Also realizing, looking at the camera monitor, that I might have screwed up doing down here because the sun is going away and it's getting darker and darker and darker. So This might be a pain in the ass to color grade, but we'll be okay. And she's got her high bars in here as well. And kind of what I want you guys to notice, like when I talked about the high bars being cheaty aware than the front squats, is check out the legs, check out the hips, and how on that first rep, watch, a little bit of kickback, right? She's just kicking out of the legs. But second rep,
yeah,
she fixes
way better, yeah.
And this is something that I talked about in the skill lecture, is that a really cool place to be as a lifter is when you can have a little bit of positioning error, tactical error, sequencing error, and self-diagnose and correct within a set. It makes it so much easier to kind of ingrain it so you no longer even need to worry about it. And I say that like the fact that it kind of got screwed up and a little bit cheaty away from the legs on rep 1, but she was able to hone it in and fix it on rep 2 and so on through the set. Like that I am really, really, really excited about. So props to her. And like as she's getting more fatigued and at the end of the set, it is getting kind of a little bit nasty again, but that's part of needing to be better at holding it in earlier on so that she's not as exposed by fatigue. Now we got Lucas. Context, he's been dealing with tendonitis in his knees since around Christmas. They're slowly feeling better, but his quads feel very weak and he couldn't find his normal groove at all. These are his first heavy squats in a month and they felt pretty trash. After that was a very ugly 315 that he called and moved on to some high bar squats for sets of 10, then some wall sits and backward treadmill walks for his knees, plus some back and ab work. So Lucas is brand new in here. Like he signed up yesterday. So again, this is the first thing that I've seen from him. But hearing all of that is that this is his first heavy squat since forever and it didn't feel very good. I think the biggest thing to be mindful of is when you're trying to come back from tendinopathy is that we don't want to ramp up too fast so we exceed the load tolerance of that tendon and make shit feel worse again. So on that, we'll take a look and see what we're seeing.
YouTube.
I'm getting there. I'm slow, but look at that. He's really rolling out into the bottom. And it does look like he's having trouble getting to the knees. It does look like he is back on the heels.
Yeah.
Go a little bit forward so we have some more weight on the bar. Yeah, and you can just tell those knees really don't want to take the loading all too much. Now, other things too that we've already touched on is like, again, I don't want to let go of the head at the top of the squat, but I think I want to focus on the hip stuff here. And you can kind of see how he is really, really, really cueing like knees out, extra rotation, pushing out really, really, really hard, which is reasonable because that was something that was, talked about in powerlifting. You want to actually rotate and knees outside of ankles. There's like the Kelly Starrett torque stuff that, got obsessed with over for a number of years. And the problem with that cue is if we look at the hip rotation required to achieve hip flexion, if we're looking at the rotation to kind of go from about like 0 degrees to kind of like a third of the way down the squat, the hips are going to need to have a little bit of extra rotation torque to have that roll be necessary. But once you kind of transition to the range that a powerlifting squat needs, you can even just see this happening. He's being forced into more IR because the hips need a little bit of IR access to hit powerlifting depth. Now, where the Kelly Starrett thing comes back in is that to go to like bottomed out Olympic lifter depth, you'll need to create more external rotation. But that's only if you're going to bottom out Olympic lifter depth and like powerlifting range, we're definitely going to be in that hip IR zone. So the guy is trying to cue hip IR. It's kind of getting in the way of where his body wants to, or hip ER. If the guy's trying to cue hip ER, it's preventing from accessing the IR necessary. It's making it harder to access the IR necessary. And shit can get torqued on more than it wants to. And that's the first thing I want to try to get rid of is try to just don't even cue rotation at all in the hips. Don't even think about it. The body is smart enough that if you just let it do its thing, it'll rotate the way it wants to when we're thinking about a ball and socket joints rotational requirements for linear motion. So what I try to focus on is, again, it's hard to see the feet because of the power rack, but he is very on the outside of the foot. This is another case where I try to just find a little bit of inside foot pressure and like spread the floor off the inside of the foot. And that should encourage the necessary rotation to happen to allow him to just like hit smooth squat depth without the hips being in the way. Because I bet right now with how the hips look, the hips are probably pushing into his knees harder, making him push the knees harder than the knees want. So if we give the hips a little bit more freedom, it should just feel better on the knees. Now, as far as what I want him doing to try to calm those knees down, basically if we have patellar tendinopathy, All we want to do is get that patellar tendon better at acting like a tendon. And in the context of squats, we really just need to be able to transmit force from the quad to tibia so we can extend the knee. But just getting it to produce force in there, if it is, really banged up, really sensitive, can't be it's not always going to be the best option. So what I like to start guys with is just have them do like really using deep knee flexion access. And a good option for that is going to be getting them to run some kneeling squats where the goal is basically just to kneel on the floor, sit your ass on your heels, and come up and just go slow, controlled tempo, just get reps until it gets a little bit hard. And that should help get those knees feeling a little bit, why am I having such a hard time talking today? But it should kind of begin to let that patellar tendon begin to better access a little bit of stretch, a little bit of length, so that it can then carry into the squats. Obviously, that's not the only thing we want to do. So we want to build that towards doing something like a front foot elevated split squat with a big emphasis on forward knee to really lengthen that tendon, doing things like potentially like holding on to the squat bar and then running like a sissy squat and just really try to shove knees forward into it, or even bringing up a reverse bend, take body weight off so we can kind of shove into that deeper knee flexion. But the better we can get at handling that deeper knee flexion, the better things should be able to do. And another thing too is I want him to check up on his hip rotation. There's a hip rotation assessment in the movement library of the classroom, so that should help him figure it out. And I want him to run that. Let me know if IR sucks, because if his IR sucks, we'll be able to do something about that to clean it up nicely for him.
Kind of reminds me of when last time I was dealing with a knee issue and I was like over externally rotating, and it wasn't until like I finally let myself have some knee valgus, and my knee pain basically
just disappeared.
It was like overnight.
And like I have my knees that are a little bit sketchy. They got the missing PCL on one side and the big old quad tear that I had in 2017 on the right side. And the only times my knees get pissy is when my hip rotation goes away, because I'm just kind of forcing that torque to be transmitted to the knees. So like hip rotation access is going to be pretty important for being able to just, make sure that the linear joints are able to act the way that they want to act. Now we got James here. I'll look at the context. So we've got him to drop the weight a little bit on the dynamic effort Spotos. He just dropped a hair on his max effort work to kind of continue working up issues with his eccentric. And he's kind of having trouble with just like really controlling the eccentric. He has an issue of falling onto himself. So for his speedier work, I've been having to run Spotos where the goal is just to be really intentful on the way down, have a hard walk up, and then have an assertive press. So really curious to see how this is looking. He has a little bit of that wrist wobble on righty. And again, I think it is just a matter of looking at the bar in his hand. It's a little bit lower in the hand on lefty than righty. And if the bar is like higher in the hand, it's going to be easier to have the wrist fold back. So one is trying to jam that bar lower on the right side. I think that should kind of sort the wrist out.
This is better than last time.
Yes, this is definitely better than last time.
Still
not good.
Yeah.
Still not good. We need to make it more better, but no, this is going in the right direction.
The last one we saw, it was about halfway down. He kind of loses tension. Now it seems like it's the last
little bit,
2-3 inches, which is better.
And it's definitely kind of going in the right direction. I think what I want to point out is with where he is stopping his Spoto presses. I mean, I like it for a Spoto, but if a Washington's good, then gets the Spoto range, he just falls. So I think what I might want to do on his next dynamic effort weight, instead of running Spotos, is running like a double stop eccentric. And what I mean by that is we want to stop it at Spoto height and then go to chest, pause again, then blast. And I think that might help him better dial in the little bit of control necessary to get to the bottom as well as possible. So that should be a little bit of an easy intent change to get the ball rolling. But compared to how loosey-goosey this looked the first time we saw his bench, so much
much better.
And I saw that we have a new comment notification.
Before we do that, there were 2 people who were wearing Calgary Barbell shorts in the video. Did you notice that?
I did.
We like Calgary Barbell.
Yeah, price is good shit.
We're fans.
Nathan Young. So Nathan, I sent him a DM on this, but so he's brand new here, so I won't give him too much shit for it. But you'll notice that all of these are YouTube, like unlisted videos that people are uploading and linking. And the reason that I want it to be YouTube unlisted is that it makes it so much easier for me to watch the videos, because if they do a direct file upload in here, it forces me to download the video and it's a pain in the ass. So I sent him a DM being like, hey, let's re-upload this as the YouTube unlisted so I don't have to do the download bullshit.
Yeah. So he really did like make the cut and then we had to delete it.
Yeah.
This is him
we'll let it slide. So we'll get 13. So we get a bonus one for today. What are you thinking?
we've got that same kind of head pack or head forward issue. It's very squirmy. Oh,
But
he fixes it.
he locks it in decently.
Okay. And then what do you think about the knee hip position coming up?
I want to talk about the beginning first, because when looking at it, look at the unrack.
It's too high.
Skip backwards. I'm pressing the button on the mouse trying to make it skip backwards. Apparently it doesn't work.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I got to go here. But really watch the unrack. He's having to shrug it to clear the hooks, and he's getting super, super, super freaking upright. So I think the number one thing that will set him up to have a better brace is going to be just dropping a hole, maybe 2 holes, so that he can just make the pick come from hips and knees and nothing else, so that his torso can be situated, so that the back can be situated, and then the brace should
on his tippy toes putting
hold together a whole lot better, and then you won't be at risk of not getting it back in as well. And the other thing too that should be more achievable is getting that harder head pack. This is good. Like this, I'm happy with. I just want to see it sooner. You got to see that he has a tendency to want to flick a little bit. I bet if we got it locked in sooner, got that brace incorporated into the upper back a little bit better by carrying that pack and carrying that upper back set through the end rack, it will turn into a prettier concentric on the squat. And as far as the knee hip position, I think that like I'm pretty okay with where it's going. But what I want to talk about is with the knees kind of needing to have that come in at the sticking point, what that tells us is that he is going to a place where it's going to be a little bit easier leverage-wise on the adductor magnus, so they doesn't have to work as hard, and it's going to make it then a little bit harder on the glutes. So this is kind of telling us that he's got strong glutes, but needs a little bit more magnus. So I'd probably be wanting to crank on some wider stance work somewhere in his program if he can, so that he can get those adductors back in shape. I know he's running one Matt Venus program, so it might be tough because it is very SBD every single day. But what I suggest doing with his deadlift is I want to run in some stiffies for his deadlift back positioning and tension. And I want him to run those stiffies in place of some deadlift volume on one day. So I might just want to run another day like as like a wider sense machine squat, wider sense box squat, just to kind of get some hips in there. And he's still going to be squatting the other 3 days of the week, so he doesn't need to worry about that going away. But if he can do some direct targeted work for those adductors, he should have a better push to the mid-range, especially if we get that unrack a little bit better situated and everything locked in before he is standing the bar up.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
That is everything.
We note that Cooper is wedged between the couch and the wall as far as she possibly can.
Cooper, you were back there the whole time? Cooper, come out. Cooper. Oh, sleepy puppy.
She just like, as the video was going, I don't think that they'll be able to see it, but she just like went further and further and further.
Good puppy. Yeah.
I was starting to get nervous she was going to fall.
What a good dog.
Hey, look at you. Yeah.
She thinks she's a cat.
Yeah, we have a cat dog.
Behavior.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we got for the Form Check Friday today. So thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far in the video. And if you made it this far in the video, like you obviously find this stuff valuable. So literally just sign up for the team. You will get a ton out of it. And like my goal is to make it the absolute best powerlifting platform on earth. And we're already getting pretty damn close to that. So we shall keep her cranking.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. Cooper, you so silly. Happy off. Good dog. I love you so much.
Hurry up.